right, everyone. How are you doing today? It is 1 o'clock in Kitsap County. You already know what time it is. It is the best hour of your week. It is tipping points and puzzle pieces. This is officially now the last episode of the year. I was a little bit premature last week, but that happens sometimes with me. But I don't do it by myself. As chocolatey as I am. I was singing a song last week and it had Amanda laughing. Ebony and Ivory. So let me go ahead and bring on my co-host there, Mark Boatwright Frost. Hello, hello.
Hey. So I'm the white keys on the piano, huh?
That's right. Side by side on my piano. I'm in a good mood, as you can tell.
Yep. So
how are you doing?
Cool. I'm doing really well. I did want to tell you though, because I know that these come as a surprise to you every week, that I changed the tagline. It is the most human hour of your week.
The most human hour of your week. All right. I'm gonna have to
get used to
absorb that for a while, because I will forget that. Man, we already have folks in here. Rob's already in here.
Yep. Terry would be here, except she's in surgery right now.
What's going on? Is she okay?
She's got a little thing in her eye where they had to do something with the muscle. So she's in surgery for the next hour.
Is it minor?
It's minor. It's minor. Though they have to use anesthesia, so they're concerned about that. I mean, the risk is more with the anesthesia than the actual surgery.
Okay. All right. Well, we got well wishes for her.
Okay.
Speedy recovery. Will she recover quickly?
Yeah. Well, it depends. They say, don't do anything for 2 weeks, but
that's not life, right?
Yeah.
Well, speedy recovery. I get a bit squeamish when it comes to like eyes and teeth and blood and stuff like that. So, all right.
Anyway, so for our human hour this week, okay. So the other thing is, this is episode 96.
Woo, 96.
We're on a countdown to 100. And unlike me, I don't even know how I managed to do this. I actually set up the next 5 videos, starting with today and moving on. And I have an idea for 101.
For 101?
For 101. So from now until January 24th, we're booked. We have plans for each of the videos. We're trying to get 100 viewers for each video. And we are trying to get the countdown going for now until the 100. The big 100. 100 consecutive videos without break.
Wow.
In our cast.
So, what should we do? We're gonna do Stone Soup, and you challenged me to do the go bag and give one away. Should we tie it to something to the 100th episode?
It'll be just about the right timing. We can do a whole discussion. Well, actually, the 100th episode is a specific discussion unto itself, but we will be talking about 2024, and Stone Soup is an appropriate part of that discussion.
Okay, all right. Hi there, Carl. How you doing? Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Carl. Hey, I've got a question for Carl, since he posted about our podcast today. Was wondering if you saw my response to your all of the wonderful work you're doing. So if you could let me know, I would appreciate it.
All the wonderful work that Carl is doing?
Yeah. He's got a whole bunch of stuff that he's working on, a lot of political stuff, all about community resilience. And of course, me being me, I asked him to do one more thing.
Well, for those of you that don't know Carl, Carl is quite an impressive human being. He also still helps out kids with math, and we get math problems every Sunday. And he is a tireless elder. He has a lot of respect for me.
Thank you
for joining us.
So what's wrong with him? No, I'm kidding.
He's just a hard worker, man.
No, I'm talking about the respect for you. But you know, I have a lot of respect for you. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Oh. Hey, man, I'm in a good mood. Doesn't mean that I'm the sharpest knife in the drawer today. You know,
Well,
I'm nauseated today for some reason. I feel good, but I don't know, my stomach is upset for some reason.
wow.
So,
Okay. Well, we'll see if we can make it better.
well, that's what we'll have to do.
All right. So today's topic: how can I help?
How can you help? Okay.
No, and it's not how can you help. How can I help? It's a paradigm shift for each and every one of us.
Hmm.
There's a TV series that, and you know, I don't usually watch a lot of TV, but there was a TV series I got hooked on Netflix called New Amsterdam. And the very first episode of it, it's a hospital drama thing. And I got to admit, I skipped through a whole bunch of it because it's all the same as other ones. But there was something very different about it. The very first episode, the new director of medicine came in and got everybody into a room, and he said, "How can I help? My job is to help you do your job more efficiently." And I
Mm.
sat back and I thought about that. And actually, on the Cashapp Resiliency Project, I have a link to a video short about all the times and how that happened. And there's a powerful visual in there because they did "How can I help?" so many times with him saying it. And then suddenly his staff starts feeding it back to him. And you see a culture shift from "How can I help you?" to them asking, "How can I help?" And it changed their mind. So
Mm.
think about this in a sense of our culture. What would it look like if we had a paradigm shift as a culture and all of us were going, "How can I help?"
How can I help?
What would that look like? What would that even look like if everybody around us had the attitude of "How can I help?" instead of "What's in it for me?"
Well, one big one, it would take a lot of folks that are very inward thinking and in
Hmm.
survival mode and give them an opportunity to kind of lift their head and look around and see what's around them.
Hmm.
And by asking that question, I think they'll find that there's some synergies. And as they help other people, they will inevitably help themselves.
Yes, we all do better together. I think "How can I help?" is an integral part of our humanity. You say it in "Many hands make light work." There are hundreds of ways we say that, but we don't, but it is not currently part of our paradigm as a culture. But I think if we all started saying it and lifting our head up and looking around, our culture would start changing to be more human and would support more of us.
Do you see it evident? I think you're speaking macroly. So do you see it in small little micro pockets of
Yes,
community?
I think we're working on the Kitsap Resiliency Project, so we're working on Kitsap County.
Mhm.
But within that macro of Kitsap County, we're looking at the microcosm of the neighborhood. So
Gotcha.
if you start doing gardening with your neighbors and you start with that with "How can I help? How can I help feed you? How can I help us have food security?"
Mm.
If we start thinking in that way, how can I help? We all benefit from that help.
Another powerful thing on asking that question would be is it removes the assumptions, right? A lot of times as, I'm a service provider, right?
Mhm,
And I
mhm,
have some ideas on how best to help people. And maybe I'm right and maybe I'm wrong. And I'm probably a little bit of both. But
mhm.
if I took more time to say, "Hey, how can I help you?" And if that person is able to answer that, then I can actually really give them a deeper level of help.
And maybe you'll find ways to help that aren't so resource intense as you have now.
Mhm. Yes, and that's why we talk about self-sufficiency and resiliency, and some of those things are, either reteaching skills or teaching skills in regards to, okay, we provide a ride or we provide a meal. We talk about teaching someone to fish, doing food prep, taking that ride and killing several birds with one stone, if you will, which is super violent. I mean, I don't know why you want to kill multiple birds with one stone, but that's neither here nor there. Skinning cats, just all these things are so violent.
Well, I was with you on the birds and stones because then it's a feast. But if you skin cats, ooh. But if you think of it, okay, there were 6 episodes that we did that talked about how we got here, all of the issues, how we have to reprogram culture, but we don't really talk about. And Rob just said it's all about efficiency, and part of that knowing is efficiency. Mm-hmm. But we talked about a lot about the stuff that's going on to get people engaged in the process. Today we're talking about how to make that change. Today we're talking about some one thing. It isn't gardening. It isn't doing this huge thing. It's not all of this going out and protest. It's not doing all these other things. It's changing your own mind to ask the question, how can I help? Because we all make a whole bunch of assumptions, as you just pointed out, about how we can help. But what if those assumptions aren't really doing the job? Maybe we actually have to ask the question first of ourselves and then of those around us. And change our mind to be in the mindset of how can I help?
Well, and I think that's where the efficiency comes from, right?
Yeah.
We clearly help other people just by the nature of our jobs, but can we do it more efficiently? Mm-hmm. And we will discover that by asking that question, right? Being investigative.
And the other part of that is, are we open to learning what that really looks like outside of our heads?
That's very interesting because in the space of full disclosure, there are some things that I'm willing to do to be helpful, but I'm only willing to do it my way. And so, I'm willing to help you, but I'm only willing to help you if you either do it this way or I'm going to help you in this capacity.
Yep.
And, that's I think that's the first step, right? Is that willingness to help. And then as you expand, right, you have your own capacities and your own efficiencies on how you can do that. And what you're talking about is for those of us that are already in that space, expanding ourselves and challenging ourselves to do, to shift that paradigm and do a little bit more by asking, how can I help?
And I'm not even saying that we have to do a little bit more. What I'm asking is, are we willing to learn what really needs to be, what assistance really needs to be given?
Isn't that a byproduct, though, by asking the question?
It could be, but it also, we have to be willing to hear and see and understand what's being asked. And that's in no way a given. Because we have, as you just pointed out, we have our own filters and our own capacities, and if somebody's trying to share that with us, we may have to go beyond where we are to actually hear what they're saying.
Yes, that's very true, and I am set in my ways, and I get that from my father. He's got a saying, or he had a saying that was, there's worse hotels than mine. This is no prison. So, if you don't like what's on the menu, you're free to eat elsewhere.
And you're absolutely right. People are going to ask for things because of the mindset that we currently have in our culture that aren't really going to help them, but it's what they want. And there's a difference between want and need. All of those are true. But if we can get our heads to start asking that question first of ourselves and then of others, we start to be able to see beyond the truth, see to the truth beyond the surface.
Well, what's intriguing for me, Mark, is if I can shift to that and begin asking that question, what that's going to allow me to do is actually help more people, right? Mm-hmm. Because I will be, again, more efficient in the help that I provide by asking the question, giving that help. Folks, like you said, it's not likely that you're doing more. You may be doing something different, and they're good to go. And now I can divert my attention to someone else that I can ask, how can I help? Right. So I'm very intrigued and encouraged by that.
And as I said, in the short video that's on the Kids Up Resiliency page in the comments, It shows that, and I want to read Carl's thing in a second, but I want to finish this thought. It shows that it's a Hollywood writing and everything, but if you ask it often enough and you perform often enough, other people start replicating that behavior, and it changes the cultural paradigm.
I hear you.
Do you want to change the world? Start with, how can I help? So
I like it. So Carl says, I know that they need more help at the Salvation Army, and I'm guessing that there is a need for more volunteer help at the Kitsap Rescue Mission and Habitat for Humanity. To that end, Carl, I just joined the Salvation Army as a board member with a couple of the colleagues a few months ago, and I believe Deborah Jackson will also be joining Salvation Army board here next month if everything goes as planned. And we know that is a huge issue here in regards to and both the rescue mission and Salvation Army, right, with housing the unhoused. And whether you're an NIMBY or a YIMBY, yes in my backyard and no in my backyard, you may be empathetic or sympathetic. You don't want people to be outside. You don't want property values to go down. You want safety. Wherever you come down on the issue, these are the two agencies that are providing that service right now. And so how can we help to house, to create a safe space for those that are, the most vulnerable in our community, and hopefully move some of them through a space to permanent housing, right? And move those numbers to zero. So that's how I asked that question and why I joined the board when they asked.
Excellent. And I know habitats, I don't know how that affects our habitat, but Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, and I'm very sorry I don't remember her name. It didn't stick in my head. She donated some number like $425 million to Habitat for Humanity in the Seattle area. And it's supposed to pass down through Puget Sound. There's a news article out there on it, I think. And I don't hold me to the numbers because I'm just kind of remembering something I read a few months ago. And
is it Mackenzie Scott?
Yes, Mackenzie Scott, and she's working her ass off to divest a whole bunch of money into charities, which is very cool. And it's one of those things I'd love to sit down and have a beer with her and hear the story behind her decision-making process and what brought her there. But I would never be able to say it on air. So, because I'm sure the story is very multifaceted. But I'd like to
be surprised. I think it's probably Occam's razor, and it's probably pretty simple. I'm making an assumption, but she grew with him to be one of the richest couples on the planet, and at some point, once you have everything, you've done everything, she can't give it all away in a lifetime.
Yeah, and this brings back the question. I'm going to go down. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Let's go back to
your brain.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I'd like to see Habitat be more involved in a slightly different model, and that's a conversation I would like to have at some point. We've talked about what a sustainable, resilient community would look like. I would dearly love to have Habitat involved, Kitsap Public Utility District, and build a coalition to actually create that here in Kitsap County, where people can live, have internet, have all of the things that they need, and solar and water filtration, and show what a truly resilient community that grows their own food and everything else looks like.
Yeah, and we talked about this earlier in the year in regards to my idea, and I don't know if Habitat would be willing to take this on, but my idea is Habitat on steroids, right? Is literally either using eminent domain or city property and building housing and having those that need the housing to build it, and then also giving them the skills, teaching them the skills that they need to be the carpenters, the framers, the electricians, the plumbers, so that they can earn a living and continue to build. So it's just not enough to build your home and maybe help with another one, but that just kind of continues on, right? In this macro way. Carl says, whatever support we give to Habitat for Humanity helps to increase the supply of affordable housing. Exactly. And so that's what I would like to do is just really put it on steroids. And we have all these folks here that need skills. We have AI, so we know that we're going to have some issues with folks who aren't going to have work. They're saying what 44% of jobs are going to be replaced by AI here in less than a decade. So I think that's a concern. We don't know how to get to universal basic income right now and what that's going to look like. So we've got to teach them skills. We've got an infrastructure that's failing. And so
we've got to create jobs that aren't dependent on AI.
Absolutely. And things like water for all and food for all and really teaching these vocational skills that people can go and earn and sustain themselves. Well, no, we don't want sustainability. We want resiliency in their lives for individuals and their families. I think that is.
I just had maybe a caption for that.
Go ahead.
Human-based employment.
Human-based employment.
Human-based jobs. They even said support and grow humanity.
Human-based jobs. Yeah. And again, you know, for those things that are the very basics of Maslow's hierarchy, you really take capitalism out of it. I think we're in a hybrid model. We've always been in one. When you look at Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, and some of the other things, our transportation, our roads, right? That's all social services. That's all what that is. And so if you pull that out and you say housing and food and healthcare, those things you're not going to make a dollar on. I think we would be better off as a community, and we can continue to thrive. Because I think we are a hybrid model is probably the best model that has been created, right? I'm not a socialist to that end.
Well, there are other models I would argue are better, but we have our own particular challenges with 50 states and the number of people that we have and the amount of area we have. We have greater challenges by the fact that our economy, even Bo is saying that the economy should be improving by the numbers and everything else, I think that a lot of it is just malarkey, and my mathematics don't support the assumptions being made about the health of the economy. And I think that with the AI question and everything else, if we're looking at the rich getting richer, yeah, then our economy is probably going to do well for a while until it doesn't, and then it's going to be horrible, and catastrophically so. But right now, I think the dinosaurs are starting to twitch, and they've realized that their heart is failing. And part of the problem with that we're seeing of that is that there's less and less money trickling down to the governments from the government. Roads aren't being repaired. I'll use an example. My favorite example is I was riding Cashapp Transit the other day, and I hit that pothole on National just as you come off of Cashapp Way. That's been there for a couple 3 years. Giant. Really? It's only getting bigger, and they're not fixing it. I mean, and that one you have to pull all the way over to the right as you go around there to avoid this pothole that's right across from the Starbucks and Walgreens.
You know, that's not my district. What would it take for citizens just to get out there, mix some cement, and put a couple cones out and say we're just going to fix this?
I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure that the mayor and public works people would be on you pretty fast about that. Because you don't have the education, you don't have the experience, it's not safe for you. I mean, there's all of this, litigious stuff that will go on. But you're not doing it. Well, right. We will get to it eventually.
And I think that's another thing that in 2024 I would really encourage people and challenge them to do is to not wait on government, and say not only how can I help, but to say why not me? Why not me? And that
maybe that answers the how can I help is why not me?
Yeah, well, why not me?
Yeah. So the I'm swinging back a little bit to the point of this is that the how can I help is a good first step for creating the paradigm shift we need to create the more human infrastructure within our culture. I got him silent. That doesn't happen very often.
No, I just want you to repeat it again.
Okay, so I think, how can I help? And shifting your own paradigm to how can I help? Even just shifting your own question in your head to how can I help? When you see something challenging and you get angry about it, well, how can I help? You don't. It's not a call to action to do something. It's a call to change your own mind, to open your space to be able to look at other possibilities. And if we start doing this on a one, and then a neighborhood, and then a community, and then an area, a county, and more, we start changing people's minds. We start changing the culture, and suddenly we're thinking completely differently than we were thinking before. And we're thinking about the people around us, the situations going on, and the things we don't like in a way that we can start maybe talking together about, well, how can I help? How can we help? How can this get changed?
Mm-hmm.
And when you start changing your mind that way, a lot of possibilities occur.
And I'm being thoughtful, because that's exactly what I plan on doing in the new year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't have the vernacular, if you will, of how your labeling of how can I help. And for me to give an example,
You're
and I think
welcome.
it's say again.
You're welcome.
For me, as an example, I've announced this last week on Facebook, and I think maybe a few months ago. But I'm going to be doing a series of new shows in the new year, and a lot of that is going to be talking about the ills, primarily, let's say in the Black community. Some of those things will be macro and touch on some other things and whatnot. But one of the big reasons that the conduit was created was to tie, right? It was to teach, to elevate, and to educate. And what we have when we look at mainstream media, and you talk about like Bo from the Fifth Column,
Mm-hmm.
and having different perspectives, and perspectives being beat down, not having being able to escape, escape velocity from CNN or MSNBC or Fox News, and even within left out of that conversation. And we need to have dialogue. And is if you talk about the bad thing, then you're being divisive about that, because we just need to talk about unity and the collective. And my experience, different communities in my own community, because it's a big Venn diagram and I'm in all these little pockets. Many folks are like, look, we don't want to deal with that. We just want to stay positive and we want to move forward. And I think they're becoming more and more out of touch on just how far things have gotten. And in order to really see where that is, they have to be re-exposed to what it is, to see, oh my God, this was we were 2 miles away, but now we're 50 miles away. We've got to go back, and if I could speak metaphorically, and there's in the Bible it talks about leaving the 99 sheep to get the one. You got to turn back and get the one, and really focus on that. And I know that is not going to be popular this year. I'm going to have a lot of folks that probably will unfriend me, will say that I'm being divisive, but this is me answering that question of how can I help, and what I believe can be a help, because that's the piece that's missing. And so for so long, we've been in this echo chamber, and we've only made these marginal gains. And we're so far, when we look at global warming and all these other issues and unaffordable housing, we can no longer continue to, make these, every inch, 1 yard at a time. We have to make huge gains. We have to have a evolution, as you will.
Intentional evolution, which is coming up in about 4 episodes. But yes, and the thing is, we have to start with us.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Marwan,
Yes.
how can I help?
Well, I think you can help by one, continuing to be consistent in the new year with tipping points and puzzle pieces. I think tuning in when you can to some of the other shows. I know you're a busy person, and so typically you're pretty much focused on tipping points, but you don't have capacity for anything else.
I do watch some of the other shows.
I know, but
Yeah,
I mean, this is
and I don't frequently comment on them because there's not a lot I have to
there's a lot,
say.
right? But this is going to be a little bit different, right? And I think perspectives are important, and it's not going to be a situation where it's like, well, I'm not black, so I can't have an opinion there. This is
I have to share with you that I was thinking about when you were talking about that, saying how can I help, and then the next thing that came into my mind to show you how we trap ourselves.
yeah.
Nobody's going to want to hear from the ivory key about black issues. Um,
See, I
but
don't agree with that.
but that was my trap, and I
Mm,
went, oh, let me just move that aside because how can I help? Literally,
yeah, yeah.
because that doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is engaging. How can I help?
Can I tell a quick story about that?
Sure.
So, systemically and historically, our community has had a hard time with, financial institutions and grants and getting funding for things of that nature. And so, as there are pocket organizations that are created to address those issues, which is fantastic and great, sometimes we have well intentioned white folks that'll say, well, you know what, I need to just, sit back and let you guys do you. And it's like, no, actually, you are the subject matter experts in, this area of finance, of
Mhm.
grant seeking, of writing grants, writing proposals. And so actually your opinion and your expertise is actually needed um, in order for us to thrive and move forward and to be able to exist efficiently and effectively in this sphere that we're trying to get into, right? Now, it's not to say that we're not going to do it culturally our way, but we still need to know what works and what doesn't work, and
Mhm.
historical perspectives and things like that. And so, I don't want it to be a thing where it's like, oh, I'm not part of that group, I can't give an opinion on that. We all
Yeah.
have opinions.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fear around that, but if you don't
Mhm.
engage, you won't find out anything different.
Right, right.
I will share a return story to some degree. I as you know, I come from California, and don't hate on me for that. Um, and when I was working in Silicon Valley for 20 years, my community included every race. And I mean, my community, my friends, the people who came to my house for Christmas, my daughter's godfather. There was no division of race in our community, our personal community. Um, but when I moved up here, that was no longer the case. In Kitsap County, it is much harder to engage because the separations are so finite in so many ways, and it has disturbed me from the day I moved up here as something that's wrong. We moved from Gig Harbor to Bremerton because we did not want at that time our 4 or 5 year old daughter to live in an all white community with one culture. We
Mm,
wanted her to be more, have a more diverse um, experience in her life. I want her to have friends of every nature, and she has, in by and large. But I have struggled, and I don't think about it much because it's not something I think about. Well, I've got to go out and get a lot of black friends or some Asian friends and stuff because I need this. But there's so much segregation in the communities that there is no natural flow to create a mixed community up here. At least I have not found it. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but that has been my lived experience for the last 20 years up here.
I could agree with that. I think some of it is, again, there's so many different. I belong to so many different groups, and so some groups are very diverse, like the Kitsap Public Health Collaborative,
Mhm.
and then some are more segregated. Kind of like church. On Sunday is like they say it's the most segregated time in America, right? This is church on Sunday. Um, and so it does exist, and there's so many different things that kind of divide us, and they may not be on racial lines, but they could be, uh, and it just is what it is. And so again, how can we be intentional on doing some silo busting in that,
Yeah.
and which is another reason why I Deborah and I she was working on a grant last night till like 3 in the morning. We're on the phone Yeah, we never sleep. And she was going through my Facebook and she's like, "Man, you do all kinds of stuff, right? You've got Martita on and she's got Chief Wolf on and they're doing a podcast in Spanish and we're over here in Evergreen and doing this event and it's like, yeah, my job is to try to diversify and elevate and inform, what's happening in Kitsap, period, within my capacity, right? And so that is important to me, and not just to focus on, one lane.
Whereas I kind of focus on one lane, but that lane's going to open up a whole lot of highways. So.
Well, I mean, if it's a main arterial, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
got to take I-5 to, get down south.
Yep.
Am I
Anyway,
correct?
so
I
yeah,
am correct. Right? Yeah.
yeah, pretty much. You can do it on the back roads, but that's its own adventure.
I would get lost on the back roads.
Yeah. Anyway, I would love to see a more integrated. God, I hate that word. I would like to see a lot more opportunity for communities of a broader scope in Kitsap County. And I'm not entirely certain. I mean, we've been friends for 2 years now, but it took a while for us to get there. And I will say, from my experience in Kitsap in Silicon Valley, it wasn't so hard. There was a lot more in common in people. So,
well, I think you and I have that. I think with
yeah,
us, we met each other through a mutual event, right?
yeah, driven
But
by Mark.
but the things that I like, and unfortunately the things that I no longer have time for, like bowling would be a great thing. That's a lot of fun no matter who you're with.
Yeah,
It's just kind of expensive now and it's a little time consuming. Man, I haven't been bowling in so long. Love going to movies, and we still try to rent the theater from time to time. Now, that's not a big time to socialize because you're kind of quiet watching the movie, but that's also community, right?
yep.
And so there are different ways that I try to create those spaces, but I don't have I would say the discretionary time. So for me, my way of kind of building that community and being in other spaces is covering things through the conduit, right?
Yep.
It puts me in position to have conversations with you every hour where we might not talk for the rest of the week otherwise. We
Right.
might, right, depending on what's going on. If we got our board meeting or an event coming up, but we might not, right? And so that's I know every Wednesday we're going to get together for an hour. We're going to have a good discussion. We're probably going to talk for 10, 15 minutes after the podcast is over, and off we go, right? Recharge for another week. And
let's,
so those
let's be honest about that. We're going to talk for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we're both going to head to the bathroom because we
well, and you know what? And you don't drink during the podcast. I mean, I just constantly drink. Carl says, in the struggle against racism, the blacks, the Asians, the Mexicans, the Jews, and the conscientious Christians are all natural allies. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do focus a lot on our differences instead of focusing on the places where we align, right? Food for all, healthcare for all, right? I mean, there's some really low-hanging fruit that we can embrace that would make the things that separate us a whole lot smaller.
And the point is to get people to have those conversations. I mean, it goes back to Niemöller's poem. First they came for the socialists, but I wasn't a socialist and I didn't raise my voice. And you go down through all the rest of the people, the trade unionists, the Jews, and then they came for me and there was no one to speak out. We're all in this together. We got one small planet. As a matter of fact, I'm working on rewriting our website, and I've been working on it for a while. I'm hoping to have it out in the next week. And the homepage has a quote by William Shatner after his trip into space. So, however you think about William Shatner, one of the things that is very poignant about this section of the homepage and why it's there is he talks about the emotional impact of realizing just how small our planet is.
Mm.
And he says that it is a phenomenon of people who have traveled in space to have a completely different outlook coming back than they had going out, because they can see this one small blue marble in this vast blackness of space that we all live on and that we're all dependent on. And he was in tears talking about the impact of that on him. And he said, and the people who quoted this talk about how the fact that that is a common phenomenon within the people who go to space. We have to remember we are on one planet. We are in this together. And maybe it's time we ask how we can help. See what I did there?
I did see what you did there.
There we go.
Well, so you're working on. Can you give us an example outside of ResEcho that you're going to ask? Maybe someone or some organization or silo bust. Some of the separation that you're experiencing here in the county in 2024.
By asking how I can help.
Yeah.
The direct question, probably not, but I have a series of meetings planned to go and talk to some folks about opening their silos up a little bit and seeing beyond the horizon, and try and get people to come together and actually talk about all of the things that they are doing. One of the things that we need to talk about, two things that we need to talk about is, which we will talk after the podcast, but I'll give it a little teaser for this, is we have been invited to go talk to Greg Nance about the project that we're doing. So I'm planning to schedule that right after the first of the year, so that we can go have a conversation. Now, as most of you know, I am not very big on politics and politicians. I don't think there's much engagement we can have with them at this point that would be meaningful to the project or the broader county, and or the neighborhoods. We need to engage with each other on the ground level. I'll be doing a whole lot more of that. We are developing resource ambassadors to help neighborhoods with gardens. We are helping develop the whole solar project. We need to go talk to some folks about that in the new year. We are going to be doing a lot of outreach into 2024 and start really driving some projects home. But what I really would love is anyone who can help us and join us in identifying people who are doing the same thing as everyone. I mean, that are all doing the same thing, and bring them together to talk about how they can work together instead of trying to recreate the wheel on their own. And it's a hard conversation to have because people have a very, as Marwan pointed out a while back, you have a very clear idea of what you want to do, and it may not be exactly the same as this person wants to do, but together you can do much more and cover a broader scope because you're both seeing a bigger picture or a different picture. Bring the pictures together. Let's make it more efficient and help more people.
Maybe that is part of what needs to happen next year. Is the question of how can I help? Maybe needs to be in the way of a survey, if you would, whether it's orally or written, where we ask the question of folks, hey, you're doing something similar. What would it take for you to get together with the other organization to do that? Do you need it to be planned around a mealtime? Do you need a building to have the meeting? Does it need to be on a Zoom? Do you need to have, the head representatives come together and just talk for 30 minutes? Did you even know this person existed? Maybe that's where we can help is by asking the question, what would it take for you to engage and build on those synergies? Because there are a lot of orgs that do something similar, or even if it's not similar, right? We're all about helping people. And I was just having this conversation with Deborah yesterday. It's like, okay, so you do this piece and G2 does the transportation and this organization caters the food and this one does this. So no, it's not the same, but it's all serving the same purpose, right? And so we just have to be intentional
So
on how to do
what if
that.
G2's vans engage with the other people, and the transportation all becomes part of G2 and the other groups, in enabling the whole effort to be a lot better. I mean, I'm just using this as an example.
Right,
Rob,
right.
don't have a heart attack and don't jump on me about that. Um, but I'm just using an example about, if transportation is part of the issue of providing the services, well, let's sit down and talk about how we can work that out and how you can pay for maintenance and gas to get that done.
Well,
Those are the conversations I want to have. Let's talk logistics. Let's see how we can do better together.
mhm. Well, that may be what it is exactly. Last year, KCR and several other organizations got together and did the big community needs assessment, which I actually need to go over and kind of revisit that for 2024 to see what are we doing? Are we on the right track? Are we addressing some of the issues from the community needs assessment? Because that's big, quintessentially exactly what KCR did, right? Was how can I help? What are your needs, right? So are those needs now being addressed? And if they're not, what do we need to do to start addressing those needs from this huge county survey that went out, right?
and
Um,
and how can we not compete with each other to do it, but cooperate?
Yeah, well, the first thing is just to find out, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, how can I help, right? Are we helping? Is it happening? Is it not happening? Why is it not happening? I think we can some of those answers I know, we're still not on the other side of COVID. We've got a new variant. A lot of people have not recovered financially from it. And quite frankly, they're falling through the net every single day. And so
Hence
there's
my
a lot.
discussion about economics.
Yeah.
What's not reported is much greater than what is.
Yeah.
Um, I want to. We're getting close to the end, and I want to bring up another side subject. For those of you who don't know, I'm working with Kitsap Transit doing rider surveys for them, find out for federal funding, and a couple things I want to bring up. One is, it astounds me the number of people who think that the $2 fares on the buses actually pay for Kitsap Transit. Kitsap Transit is public transportation, is paid for by federal dollars. And so when the federal money, when the federal government asks for information, you get it to them. Um, but bringing COVID back up, crippled the ridership of Kitsap Transit, and they have not yet recovered from it. Um, they are having trouble expanding back to the number of service routes and rides and times that they had before, but they can't get drivers to do it. The drivers they have, they just can't get the manpower or keep the manpower to do that, and they pay fairly well, and they have great benefits, but they don't have the ridership to create that base to do that. So Marwan and I have begun a discussion about how we can positively affect the ridership and get people back on the buses.
Mhm.
Having ridden on buses from Port Orchard all the way up to Bainbridge Island, they go a lot of places that we need to go, and we can reliably get a bus where we need to get it most of the time. And if we had more riders, that would be more certain, and we can expand the hours. Even we can start getting the hours expanded. We can attract drivers from a larger pool. We can make things happen. And public transportation, whether you like it or not, is part of a resilient future. Can it be improved? Absolutely. But we will need to work together to make that happen. And part of working together is getting people back on the buses. So, end of my diatribe.
Well, and I got an alert today from my office manager saying that the South Kitsap ride suspended Thursday, the 28th, uh, for lack of drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Although they will be honoring those rides that were already booked. And so, we clearly need to reach out to Kitsap Transit and say, how can we help? And this is how
Yeah.
we could help. You don't have drivers. We clearly do. They might have to get around some union issues. Uh, but
But
we,
that's discussion and logistics.
That is a discussion of logistics and thinking outside of the box, right? There's
Hmm.
an agency that can and effectively does that. Yesterday, I was in a meeting for about 4 hours yesterday with my leadership team, and we are going over 10,000 uh, rides this year, which is the most we've done in our 5 years of existence. And looking at how many of those rides come after hours of public transit or graveyard shift, taking folks to work, rides that don't fit for either parent or para or access services, or someone trying to ambulate from where the bus would drop them off to getting to their home, or time constraints and things like that. So there is a great amount of need that's there. And in 24, one of the things that I think we can say, how can we help, is to articulate that need a little more clearly, right? We're so busy doing the work. We need to share, why we're doing that work and who is being impacted by the service that we do provide. Because I think that part's missing.
Yeah, and just to share a story, when I worked for those of you who also don't know, I worked for G2 for 2 years, driving, and
Good 2 years.
yeah, it was 2 years.
Wow.
For the first drives I had was picking up a gentleman at ungodly early hour, like 3:30 to 4 o'clock in the morning, and driving him from East Bremerton, to Gig Harbor to do kidney dialysis twice a week. So there's a wide range of reasons that people need to go places that can't be serviced by traditional transportation, and G2 does a great job of making that happen. I can't tell you how many people I took for cancer treatments and other things that would have no other easy way to get to and where they needed to be. And this is seriously life and death stuff.
Yeah. Well, and to that end, because you talk about, duplication of services, and it's like, oh, Kids Up Transit does transportation, G2 does transportation, but we actually don't do the same thing. But we could support each other
Mhm.
if we were more intentional on working together, which would be to the win of the community, right?
Yeah.
Because it would allow us to do more. Maybe we could work out some things for folks that are kind of like the ride share that's being canceled tomorrow, is saying, hey, who can we get to the main arterial, to the main bus line, right? And pick up that ridership, so that more federal dollars can flow in, so we can increase bus service, right? And it's more viable for more people here in the county.
So how can we help?
Well, that's what we'll be working on in 24, right?
Yep.
One of many things.
So there is going to be a lot of things coming up in 2024 early on. Look for, please, please, please go to the GitHub Resiliency Project page, because I post everything there. Um, the tipping points and puzzle pieces, please share it. Ask your friends to look at it. I think you're going to find some very interesting things here, and you'll hear about things we're doing. One of the things we're doing is on February 9th, we are doing Stone Soup. And it is going to be at the West Side Improvement Club over off of National and I believe E. Um, and I entreat you to come, because you will hear stories, you will learn things. We have a lot of hands-on events. We will be providing dinner, and your price of entry is to bring something for the dinner. We will be posting that on the Kids Up Resiliency Project page about mid-month, and you can bring any piece of dinner. If you're familiar with Stone Soup, you will understand why we're asking that as a point of entry.
I want to read Carl's statement.
Yep.
It says, it might be an idea to kick around that if there is a shortage of bus drivers, some public transportation could be done with vans, which can be driven by a driver with just a regular driver's license, while a full-size bus needs to be driven by a driver with a special driver's license. In fact, I think that is the subject you are on right now. And yes,
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 it
indeed.
is.
You're speaking 100% exactly what we're thinking about. And we are prepared to fill those gaps and increase transportation for Kitsap Transit. in exactly the way that you're suggesting there, Carl. We
Yep.
have wheelchair vans and everything else, so we could
And
do shuttle service in certain areas. We're pretty robust and can gear up pretty quickly.
so, also, Carl, just wanted to let you know that if you have friends who are in retirement age, need some extra income, they have what they call B board drivers, which are part time, couple days a week. They will teach you what you need to know to get the CDL you need for the buses or B access drivers. Again, they pay fairly good money, but they need people that'll come on board um, and stay with them for a while. So please put the word out. Again, none of this works. Social media does not work unless people share it and
Mhm.
people like it and people, ring the bell on the thing, subscribe. All of those things are what gets it out further. And then we can get, instead of Marwan and I, which we started talking to ourselves, talk to a larger community. And I will say that we're trying to get 100 viewers per this last five, because I think people, once they see it, will come back and be part of it and be like you are, Carl, talking it up and asking questions that we can answer.
Well, and that's
Um,
the proverbial puzzle piece, right? Is
yep,
Carl is bringing ideas to the table, and
yep,
that's where the answer is going to lie. It's going to lie with folks that haven't put their eyes and their mind on the problem before. They see it in a different way, and they're going to say, "Hey, well, have you guys thought about doing this? What if we did that? I'd be willing to help with that." And that there, the solution is there.
yep. And if we're talking to each other, we find the solutions. That's just the way it is.
Thanks.
Yep. So I think we already have the last statement.
How can I help?
Yeah.
Final word.
Final word.
All right, so that is the final word of the year. I do want to take some time. I'm gonna let you end with the final thoughts,
Okay.
but seeing as this is the last show of the year, I do want to thank everyone for tuning in for every single Wednesday, 52 Wednesdays for tipping points and puzzle pieces. Uh, we are very thankful that you would spend your hour with us or any amount of time going back and watching the episode later, being thoughtful, doing some of the work in your way, in your circles, and helping to build a better community. Um, we're thankful for that, and we hope that you will continue to join and continue to bring your puzzle piece in whatever capacity that is. And we hope that we can challenge you to bring more of your piece next year and entice other folks to come in and say, we can have the audacity, the temerity, the unmitigated gall to change our community and make it how we want it to look like, and make city government and county government and state government work for us, and make sure that everybody has those basic needs as we move across Maslow's hierarchy of need, and just really try to be thoughtful and caring, find empathy and sympathy, be solutionaries, be problem solvers, and just be better versions of ourselves. And leave it with, how can I help? And I'm gonna leave it to you.
Yep. Embrace our humanity.
Final thoughts for the year?
That's it.
All right. A man of little words at the end of the hour. Well, of course, we appreciate you. It is Wednesday. There is no city council tonight. So this is the only show that will appear on the podcast. Do understand that I will be broadcasting live on New Year's Eve. So depending on what it is you're doing, if you're not in a watch service or you're not doing fireworks or out doing all the myriad of things that you do, I will either be on my hands and knees doing my tradition of mopping the floors of G2, or I will be coming to you in a podcast. Well, I always do both, right? So either I physically can do the mopping, but I'll always broadcast on New Year's Eve. So stay tuned for that. And as always, take care of yourself and take care of each other. For Mark Boatwright Frost, I'm Marwan Cameron. This is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces on the Conduit.